Meghna, we'll start. You can unmute your mic, Meghna. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second virtual study circle meeting. Before a formal introduction of our today's speaker, a few announcements. I would request everybody to keep your mic and webcam on mute, so it won't disturb the speaker. We will take up the question and answers at the end of the session. You can write the questions on the chat box, and we will pass it on to the speaker. And also, I would again request everybody to write your name, edit your name, those who have not done, as name plus membership number. It will help us to easily compile the CP records and upload it to ICI website. Our today's session is on trademark and other related matters. Our today's speaker is CS Meghna Shah. Majority of you might be knowing her, but let's begin with us. Our today's speaker is CS Meghna Shah. She has more than 10 years of experience, and she is a qualified company secretary, LLB, and BCom as well as MCom. She is a partner in Mehta & Mehta, a secretarial and legal services firm. She is mainly handling corporate law matters, consultation, and execution side. She is acting as an attorney before IPR authorities since 2011, handling application, litigation, and consultation for trademarks. She has also handled mergers, conversion, acquisitions of companies. She is appearing before NCLT and other various MC authorities for company law matters. She was a visiting faculty at Podar College of Commerce for Executive CS course for Economic and Commercial Laws. She was also a visiting faculty at P.N. Doshi College, Ghatkopar for the same subject, as well as Business and Economic Laws for Foundation course. She has also done a lot of knowledge addition lectures at various study circle seminars. She has literally revived the Company Secretary Ghatkopar Knowledge Circle. She was a past convener of that Ghatkopar Knowledge Circle. She is presently acting as a member of core group of GKC, that is Ghatkopar Knowledge Circle conveners. She has given lectures at various investment awareness programs, ICSI, CS study circles, as well as CS Institute. With this brief introduction, let's welcome our today's speaker, Meghna Shah. I would once again request everybody to keep their mics on mute. And over to you, Meghna ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Charvik and Bhavin and all the team of Ghatkopar Study Circle for giving me this opportunity. And I try my best to keep up to the level of the study circle. Good evening, everybody, and I will start with the topic. And today's topic is trademark and related matters. This is a very offbeat topic, and as such, not directly related to you as chartered accountants. But yes, it is very much relevant from various aspects. The first and the foremost is that this is particularly a property, an intellectual property, and it has its value. And this value is very important, especially when there is any kind of restructuring going in a company. Also, it is very much important if any of your clients would like to know about what is the importance of creating a brand value for themselves, what precautions they must take when they are going on this path. Even if they are not registered as a trademark user, what benefits they get, what are the disadvantages they have if they are not registered. So all these matters are covered up in my presentation. And I would very deeply try to cover up what are the pros and cons in the process of trademark registration, what care has to be taken to register a trademark, and what goes wrong if the trademark is not registered. So let us start with it. So the legislation which gives powers for the trademarks is Trademarks Act 1999. And what is a trademark? It is basically an intellectual property. What do we mean by intellectual property? It is basically something which has been created by an intellect of a person. A person's own intellect has helped him or her to develop a unique mark, which is now claimed as his or her property, and will allow that person to stop somebody else using from his or her property. This is the crux of the whole process. The definition, we'll start with the definition, and it says that this Trademarks Act 1999 extends to the whole of India. So anywhere in India, whether it is Jammu, Kashmir or anywhere else, every person falls under this particular legislation if it wants to register the trademark. And trademark is something which is capable of being represented graphically. What do we mean by represented graphically? It means that it is capable of being represented in paper form or digital form, right? So something which is very abstract and you cannot put it on paper or you cannot put it on a digital form, like sound, you cannot put it on paper or digital form, then that will not constitute as trademark. It has to go under another IPR, that is another intellectual property right, but not under trademark. So trademark is something which you can identify on some paper or in digital form, and a mark which is capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one person from those of others. So it must have a distinguishing characteristic. It should have something unique in itself, so that it can say that, see, I am different than all of you, and hence I should be registered as an owned property of somebody. Also, a trademark may include shape of goods. Yes, as I'm saying, you can very well draw a shape of goods and say, oh, see, this is the shape of my good and this is my own intellectual property and I need to have ownership on it. So it can include, it may include, I'm saying, so what is the meaning of may include? It is quite broad, but we have just given some examples over here. So it may include shape of goods, their packaging and combination of colors. Now this is something unique, that even if the trade name or the trademark is registered, you can separately register the packaging design of that particular product or for the services as well. Even the combination of colors, you might have a very unique combination of colors, which is your own intellect, which you have developed through your own intellect, and you can apply for the registration of that same. Also, the registration of the trademark is for the purpose to indicate a connection. So the mark must indicate a connection in the course of trade between the goods or services and some person having the right as proprietor. That means, suppose if I am going to register a mark for myself, which I have developed, then this particular mark must develop a connection between me and the goods and services provided by me. That is the whole idea of that unique identity created by the mark for me. So now, question, does a trademark mean same as brand? Like, there is a very thin line of difference according to me. Trademark is basically just a mark, but as and when it gains popularity, in a very general parlance, I'm saying that if this mark gradually gains popularity in the minds of people globally or nationally, wherever, even in a class of people, once it starts becoming popular, it then can be called as a brand. So brand is basically, it has already created a value for itself. But for a mark to be considered as a trademark, the whole uniqueness in it is that it should have a distinguishing characteristic. So trademark need not be a brand, or brand is always a trademark. It could be like that. Now, what are the benefits of trademark registration? Like before I go through these points, you can see some pictures over here. And I need not even say these pictures resemble or these pictures are for which product or services. The name itself speaks everything about itself, right? So this is the value which these marks have created for those goods and services. This value is the benefit of trademark registration. Once a mark is registered, it starts creating a value for its own self. So the first and the foremost benefit of registering a trademark is it gives an exclusive right to the owner. It gives an exclusive right to the applicant. And this exclusive right is in a sort of legal protection through this act. Also, the registered trademark helps to build up huge trust or develop goodwill or prestige in the market, in the minds of people. Like right now, if I say that I am going to buy sports shoes of Nike, then there is nothing further to be said by me. I know very well, and the person whom I'm talking to knows very well that I'm going to buy a product with a very good class, with very good quality, right? So this is something, a trust which people have built upon that particular brand, or a goodwill which that brand has built for itself. So this registration of trademark helps a particular mark to develop trust or goodwill or prestige for itself. It differentiates the product and the services. So there could be various people providing same class of product or services. But see, there are many people who are manufacturing sports shoes. But when we see a tick mark on a sports shoe, we definitely know that this particular sports shoe has this kind of qualities. It has this standard of quality, and we need not look further in it. So that is what it differentiates from the other products or the services. Right. So even though like here in the screen also you can see F. F means Facebook, and you know very well what are the characteristics of Facebook, what services does Facebook provide. So you need not go further and ask anybody. So it differentiates your product or services from other. It gives you assurance of quality. As I said earlier, the sports shoes I was talking about. So once I see the particular mark on it, it gives me an assurance that this has a particular standard of quality. It creates an asset, yes. So and then when it starts developing a mindset, developing a positivity in the mindset of people, we are actually creating an asset. And remember very well, this asset has a very huge value, because once that particular company or that applicant starts valuing the brand for itself, it then only comes to know. Remember, Oyo is now a $10 billion brand. So it has developed this asset by providing the proper standard of quality of services. Then comes the protection against infringement. Yes, this is related to the first point. It gives an exclusive right, that is a legal protection against infringement. If anybody else is then trying to copy your mark, or using a similar mark, or trying to take away your customers by deceiving them by using, a similar mark, then you get a protection against this act, because it has specific sections which says that, if you are registered, then you get so and so protection. Also, global trademark registration. When a person, initially has registered a brand in India or a mark in India, and then after a certain period of time would like to go global, then the registration of the mark in India is the first step to go global. Without that, you cannot move ahead on the global level. And also, it helps you to move faster if you have a local registration in India. And another benefit which I can see is the Companies Act 2013, or even as a matter of fact, LLP Act. In both these acts, you all very well know that if you are going to apply for a new name or a change in the name, then we need to ensure that the new name is not a trademark which is already applied or already registered. So suppose if you already have a trademark which is registered for yourself, then you can very well claim it in the Companies Act or under LLPs Act. So these are the broad benefits. Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, this particular act confers upon you certain rights. So what are these rights? These rights are flowing through section 28 of the act, and which says the registered trademark gives exclusive right to use the trademark. Exclusive right means what? Suppose if I am the applicant and I get this mark registered for myself, then I am the exclusive owner. Nobody else other than me can use this mark for those goods and services for which I have registered that particular mark. Of course, it is subject to any conditions and limitations to which a registration is subject. And the trademark registry or the controller of the patent and trademark agent has that power to levy any condition or that during my presentation. Also, the right which is conferred by registration is it gives some relief in respect of infringement of trademark. Suppose if there is any infringement, then you get a relief through this act. Then this is available only if the mark is registered. What do we mean by infringement? Now they have very specifically identified certain terms which which can be termed as infringement, but these are inclusive. So it can be more than this, but let us go through this. Any person not being a registered proprietor or a person using. See, what I mean by registered proprietor means a person who has applied for a mark for registration, right? So that is a registered proprietor. Or a person using by way of permitted use. Like if I am a registered owner, then I am permitting, say, X person to use this particular trademark, then that person is a person who is using by way of permitted use. He has to use this mark. He has permission from me. So any of these persons, right? Apart from any of these persons, if any other person uses a mark which is identical with or deceptively similar. Now mark my words, identical or deceptively similar are very subjective words. Like according to me, a particular mark could be absolutely different than the other mark, but according to the trademark registry, then it could be an identical one. And this is a very litigative subject also. Trademark is completely very subjective and litigative. Let me tell you, it requires two types of skills within you. First is a professional one and another is a creative one. This trademark is completely based on creativity of a person. So you need to actually identify the creativity in it. You need to identify the similarity and the differences between it. Right? So when you're talking about identical or deceptively, say for an example, McDonald's have that trademark, they have that mark of big M for themselves. Now suppose if somebody else, like I'm Meghna, and I want to use that big M for myself for providing services of company secretary or a trademark agent, can I use that big M for me? No, I cannot, because that particular big M in that particular color and font is already been associated to that particular class of goods and services. And if I use it, then I am using it, which can be known as identical or deceptively. Suppose if I'm not using M in that particular manner, but say I'm using it a W, but in the same kind of fonts and colors and design, again, it will be considered as deceptively similar. So it is a very, very broad term, identical or deceptively similar. And if that person is using in relation to goods or services of registered trademark, like suppose if that person is using in for the same goods and services under which that particular mark is already been registered, then also likely to cause confusion on the part of the public. Suppose if that particular mark which that person is using, who is not a registered owner, is using such a mark which creates confusion in the minds of people. Like there could be a mark with star within a circle, right? And now this another person is using a mark which has a circle inside the star. So it is quite confusing to the people. People see, I understand people are like, they understand this mark, this design in a very general term. They just pass through a road, they see a hoarding and they identify, okay, this hoarding and this mark is particular for this particular brand and particular product or services. So, that is the way how we have to look at it, whether it is identical or deceptively similar or confusion or creating confusion. Or a particular mark which is likely to have an association with a registered trademark. See, McDonald's is already an established mark, right? And suppose somebody else is using that particular M for different kind of product or services. People, what would they try to analyze? That maybe McDonald's would have come out with some another class of goods, or maybe they have come out with some another class of services. So this kind of association, if is created through use of such mark by a person who is not a registered owner, then it can be counted as infringement. Also, suppose if he tries to take unfair advantage of or is detrimental to the distinctive character or repute of the registered trademark. I have seen in many cases, even we see on the roadside, some people are selling bags, sky bag, and they what they do in between all the alphabets, they insert one additional alphabet, like the original brand is SKYBAG. What they do, SKYEBAG. Now what they have done, they have with intention tried to take an unfair advantage of the developed brand and have tried to sell their product through their brand. So this is something which we call as unfair advantage, or it is detrimental to. Now the quality of that bag would definitely not be as good as the original brand's bag. So what it is in a way doing, a person who doesn't have that much of knowledge will try to purchase that bag, and with that understanding that, okay, this is a very good brand and I'm going to buy a bag of a very good quality. And ultimately after a few months, if that bag is torn or if there is any damage created to the bag, what will happen in that person's mind? He or she will definitely think, oh, this is such a big brand and they are providing such an inferior quality of products. So what that person has done, that person who is not a registered owner has created a negative image for that brand. So it is detrimental to the distinctive character or repute of the registered trademark. A mark which is used as trade name or business concern. Now here comes something which we would face, like I myself had faced in one of my clients' case. They were having a company running from since last 20 years, and suddenly they got a notice from an international brand saying that if you don't stop using this particular brand, then we are going to sue you with X number of amount. So 20 years that person had, running that company with a particular name, and suddenly an international brand says that, okay, this is something which is my brand, and we are registered owner of it, and you cannot use it. So there was no option, but we had to change the name of the company. So even though a person is not using it for that particular product or the services, but merely as its business concern or a trade name, then again it will be considered as infringement. Now again, this last point is a very, very broad term. If it is for spoken use or visual representation, again and again, if a person is again and again speaking out some words which are actually a registered brand, a registered mark of somebody else. Now what happens if that person is regularly speaking out those marks? He is trying to show to public that he owns that mark. Or even if somewhere in a visual representation he is showing that particular mark which is not his own mark, then what happens? He is trying to show that he is owning that mark which is actually not owning. So any kind of spoken use or a visual representation, of course we have to construe the meaning in a very, very limited purpose, like we have to prove that how it is infringing or how it is creating confusion or how it is detrimental to the registered mark. But these are the cases if any person is using any mark which is identical or deceptively similar or creating confusion or has an association with the registered mark or creating taking unfair advantage, all these points, any of it, then it will be termed as infringement of registered trademark. And this is provided under section 29. Now, every time whenever I was talking about, using the mark here, using the mark there, what is the meaning of usage? Now, usage means registered mark is affixed to goods or the packaging. Now, see, here we are talking about trademark. Trademark is all about marketing. You have to keep on. See, why it is all about marketing? How do you create a brand out of a trademark? More and more people start knowing about your mark, it starts becoming a brand. And more people start using your product. And the more the number of people are adding on to the knowledge, the mark starts becoming a brand and then a well-known mark. So it is all about how strongly, how proactively you are approaching to public, how proactively you are capturing the mindset of public. So you have to be very, very, very proactive on usage of a mark. So what happens when I'm talking about usage? It means you have to affix it on your goods or packaging. Like whenever a person comes to me, like I want to register a mark. The first and the foremost question which I always ask is, have you been already using the mark or no? If that person says, yes, I have already been using it, then my second question comes is, where have you been using it? Have you marketed it anywhere? Have you taken part in any trade or a fair or an exhibition where you have put any hoardings? Give me each and every area where you are using the mark. And the visiting cards, the letterheads, the signature in the emails, the label of the product, the box of the product, the bills, the invoices, everywhere, wherever you are using the mark is as good as you are marketing yourself. You know, you must also be seeing that many people are printing their name on carry bags. What are they doing? They are basically marketing the product. On the BST buses, everywhere it is marketing. More and more your mark is out in the public. More and more your mark is seen in the public. You are marketing it and you are creating a brand out of you. So it has to be affixed on goods or packaging. Offers or exposes goods for sale. So wherever any goods are for sale, you know, there you have put the mark. So what is happening? You are actually offering or exposing that mark through the goods which are for sale. Imports or exports good under that mark. You are importing some good, affixing your label and selling under that particular mark. This is also a type of usage. Uses the registered trademark on business papers or in advertising. I have already said this. So these are all particularly considered as usage. It could be more than this, but these are definitely there. Now what happens if you have not registered the trademark? then you cannot take any action. So no person shall be entitled to institute any proceeding to prevent or to recover damages for the infringement of an unregistered trademark. Now suppose I am using a mark which is not registered and somebody else is using a mark which is registered and that mark is quite similar to me. Do I get a right to sue that person or to stop him or her from using the mark? No, that person gets a right. Of course, there are another areas also, there are other conditions also attached to it, and that is that nothing in this act shall be deemed to affect rights of action against any person for passing of goods or services. What do I mean by passing of goods or services? Passing of means, suppose there is a brand like, again, I'm coming to the same example, McDonald's, right? So suppose McDonald's is there, and now I am manufacturing, I am producing some food item, and I put a logo on it which is quite similar to McDonald's, and then I sell it out to people. Now people are very bhola bala. What they will do, they will look at that M and they will think, "Arey, McDonald's have started, selling their products to such small outlets also." So what am I doing? I'm actually passing off my goods as McDonald's to public, which is actually wrong because I'm not actually giving the original McDonald's product. So this is known as passing off, and this passing off is actually not allowed under the Trademarks Act directly, but you have a mechanism, another legal mechanism like civil suit, any such legal mechanism, and that protection is anyways there. See, law always protects a genuine person. If you are genuine, you have no malified intention of passing off or taking advantage of another's brand value, then you will get some benefit under any other law, but not under Trademark Act. There are certain limits also. As I said earlier, honest practices in industrial commercial matters, somewhere you cannot just avoid using a particular design or a particular name for conducting your business. So if it is honestly, it is honestly used by you and there is no malified intention that you want to use somebody else's brand, then you get protection, but you need to prove it, so always documentation is very much important over here. Is not such as to take unfair advantage of, to detrimental to the distinctive character or repute of the trademark. I am genuinely doing something with no intention to take unfair advantage from somebody or to create any wrong impression about somebody else or to take away somebody else's business. This is not there in my mind. Then I might get some relief or I would get a lenient opinion from a lenient order from the judicial body. Something which is very generic or customary. People would say that, suppose if a doctor goes and get itself registered for the services he providing as a doctor with the name doctor, can he get it or not? No, he cannot get, because this is a very generic term, this is a very trade related term. So or suppose what happens is that doctor gets that mark registered for himself. Say for an example, a doctor goes and registers the mark doctor for himself. What happens? He gets his exclusive right, and through this exclusive right, he will then stop all other doctors from using that word. Now, if all those doctors have been stopped using the word doctor, can they practice as doctor or not? They cannot. So it is ultimately non-constitutional, and hence a generic word cannot be allowed to be registered as a trademark. Suppose if a term when registered was not generic, but later on, it becomes a customary thing to speak out those words, then again, he or she, the one who is registered, loses that exclusive right. If there are any conditions or limitations already imposed on use, then that limitation is anyways there by the conditions or limitations are already there on the owner. Registered owner confirmed permitted use and has not subsequently removed or obliterated it. Yani, what happens, suppose if I am allowing somebody to use my particular mark for a period of 10 years. The 10 years period has been over now, and I have not withdrawn or I have not made it to public that 10 years have been completed, and that person is still using that mark. What happens? Like, I have not written the term of 10 years in my agreement. I have not even stopped him. I have not even made it aware to the public that I had an agreement for this use only for 10 years. Then I lose my right to stop him. I need to take care that whatever I am doing is legally sound and backed by proper documents. Now, one thing I would like to very clearly and transparently say over here is that there are certain flip sides of trademark registration. It is a costly affair, and I will tell you why. See, in trademark, you have to file an application. After the application is filed, there could be any objection or there could be any litigation coming in. So, the litigation matter goes on long and long and long, and there could be some other expenses also. If you have to protect the mark completely, then you have to take care that each and every item in that mark is protected. So suppose if you have a logo and a name and a tagline, and you want to get an exclusive right for all these three, it is always advisable to get separate application or to file separate application for all these three. If you are filing a joint application for a name and the logo and the tagline, what happens? You get the protection for these three things to be used together, but not separately. So now if you are going to file separate applications, again this separate cost. Also, a particular mark in a particular design, in a particular color or a font, each and every aspect is different over here. Maybe I have that particular design registered with me, but the mark itself is not there. It's a Meghna. I have written Meghna, and I have written Meghna in a typical design. Now the design is also my unique creation. I want to protect that design also. So I can apply separately for that particular design. Then how I put that particular mark on a label, the design of the label, the color combination in that label, even that has a unique characteristic. I can apply separately for that particular characteristic also. So each and every item which is your unique creation can be applied separately, and more minute you go and apply, more stronger and stronger your mark becomes your own. But every application and every aspect has a cost attached to it. So trademark is a costly affair. Also, each and every mark has to be applied in a particular class, and that too each application can be done for per mark per class. Now suppose if I am dealing into varieties of products and all those products are not falling under one class, then what I have to do? I have to apply under various classes. Like very recently, I had applied in 4 classes, same mark, and all those 4 classes for that same mark a separate logo, and all those 4 classes a separate tagline. So it's very, very costly. Imagine 4 into 3, 12 applications. And what am I deriving out of it? I'm deriving one name, one logo, and a tagline. So it's a very costly affair. But saying so, I do not want to scare you all. The only thing is, if you are registering your particular mark, your word mark also, it is quite enough to start with. And as in when your business grow, as in when you feel the need of creating your ownership on that particular characteristic, you can move ahead by registering at that point of time also. And in fact, it is very beneficial also, because on that stage, you have already a particular market. You have already captured public's mind in a particular percentage. So that will help you to say that you have a very strong stand to apply for that registration. It is a very subjective matter. As I said earlier, something which could be very different to me could be very much identical to you all. So it is a very, very subjective matter. At every point of time, you have to prove that why you are right or why that person is wrong. So from that, the another point falls, it is litigative. And again, it is a fallout of litigative point. It is time consuming. So these are the practical flip sides of registering a trademark. But having said so, the advantages are so huge. You will come to know the brands have been valued so much, and that was possible only if they were registered. What can be registered? Now coming to that point, something which is capable of being represented graphically, I've said, having distinctive characteristic, or is a well-known mark. Now there is a different separate class of section dealing with well-known mark. Suppose I am Bata brand. It's not a registered mark, but it is a very, very well-known mark. So a well-known mark is something which is in the knowledge or the recognition in public. It depends upon the duration, extent, and geographical area of the use. How can we know that a particular mark is a well-known mark? I would say I'm very well-known. It is like becoming world famous in Ghatkopar sort of thing. So what do you mean by well-known? You have to consider all these aspects. You have to see the duration of the usage of the mark, the extent of usage. The mark has been used nationwide. The geographical area of use, the successful enforcement of the rights. Maybe, earlier somebody else was using and I was able to stop through the civil suit or something. So how successful was I to stop somebody from using my mark? If I was able to, then it proves that I have a well-known mark with me. Or it is recognized as a well-known trademark by any court or a registrar. Maybe there is some another suit which has already passed an order saying that, look, this particular mark is a well-known mark and you cannot copy it. So that order is sufficient to prove that I have a well-known mark with me. So these are the four broad categories. Also, like many a times we have to prove by showing the sales figure, the turnover figure, the number of users, if it is sold online, the number of people who have visited the site, the replies which I have got, or even from the kind of trades and the fairs which I have attended to market my product. All these are also counted to know whether a mark is well-known mark or not. Now, I would try to highlight upon what do you mean by knowledge or recognition in public. See, it means that number of actual or potential consumers. As I said, we have to prove, we have actually taken numbers that so far we have sold lakhs of crores of products. That means lakhs of crores of people have already used our product. Number of persons involved in the channels of distribution. Maybe I am a wholesaler and then there are so many people who have been distributing my goods and they are reaching out to people at large. The business circles or the section of the public dealing with goods or services. I might be dealing in such goods or services which a very specific class of people would be using it. But then that specific class of people are like to me. Then again, that is very much relevant to understand whether this particular mark is a well-known mark or not. And whether this mark is used in India or outside. It could be used globally also, and I can prove that, see, globally I have such a huge name for myself, and hence it is a well-known mark. And whether it is registered or applied in India or not, even that is immaterial. Many a time, as I said, the Bata example, it is not registered. It is not even applied in India. But still, tomorrow if somebody goes and says, I want to drinking water bottle I have developed, and over that I am writing the the word Bata, I will not be allowed to register that Bata name for drinking water, right? Though it is a different class of goods, still it is a well-known mark and not be given to anybody else. Now, what cannot be registered, as I said earlier, if it doesn't have distinct characteristic, which is generic, or which is a similar mark, or which creates confusion, which is prohibited, certain emblems, Indian flag and everything are prohibited. They cannot be given for registration. So, which hurts religious sentiments, or a single chemical element. There are many pharma products which goes for trademark registrations. So any single chemical element, on that they want to register their mark will not be allowed, or names and representations of living or recently died persons. What do I mean by recently died person? Any person who has been dead since last 20 years will not be considered as recently. So within these 20 years, anybody who has died in last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 2 years, if I'm using name of such a person, then it cannot be registered. Who can apply? The owner itself can apply. So here, though I am an agent, but if a client comes to me and says, Meghna, I want to register in my own name, he or she is very well allowed. Even a application can be done, filed on behalf of a company or a partnership firm or a proprietorship firm also, or an individual also, or an agent on behalf of owner. Who can become an agent? Advocates and company secretaries are allowed to become agent. But if you do not have any advocate or a company secretary, then the person itself, the owner itself, can create a proprietor code on the website and can register. Who can register? An individual, a proprietorship firm, or a partnership firm, or a small enterprise. So what is small enterprise? It is as defined under MSME Act. Or a startup, but a startup should be a registered one having a certificate, because when you are doing online filing, they will ask for a certificate and only then you will be allowed. Now, why I'm characterizing this over here? Because the fees criteria changes. The fees for individual or a proprietorship firm, not proprietorship firm, individual and a startup is 4,500. But for all others, it is 9,000 rupees. And that too, if you are filing online, because they are promoting online system, they are giving discount. Otherwise, it is 5,000 and 10,000 respectively. So these are the categories of persons who can apply for registration of a trademark. What happens once you apply and you are through to the whole process? There are separate parts in the process, and if you're through it, then you get a registration certificate, and that registration certificate is considered as a prima facie evidence of the validity of that particular mark. There is a time limit for the validity, and that time limit is 10 years. But mind well, this 10 years is from the date of application and not from the date of getting a registration. But the registration process, at times, if there is any litigation involved, it goes on for, say, maybe from 1 year to 5 years also. So suppose, it might happen that, a mark is facing an opposition notice, then it might finally get the registration certificate at the end of 6th year. And immediately after 4 years, your mark will tend to expire and you will have to renew it. Every renewal is for 10 years. So a validity of the registration certificate is 10 years and it has to be renewed after every 10 years. This is a very unique feature, effect of acquiescence. What is the meaning of acquiescence? Acquiescence means that I am aware of the fact that somebody else has applied for the registration of a particular mark which is similar to mine, or which is deceptively similar to mine, or which is creating confusion, all those criteria, which I don't want him to apply basically, because I am using it. I am owner of that particular mark. And after being aware also, I'm not taking any action. That means I am in acquiescence. That means, suppose if the acquiesced, means me in this case, acquiesced is for a continuous period of 5 years. Till 5 years, I am fully aware that a particular person is using this particular mark and I'm not taking any action, right? Being aware of that use and I'm not taking any action, then I lose my right to stop him. So he shall no longer be entitled to apply for a declaration that the registration of the later trademark, means that trademark is invalid. Otherwise, I had all the rights because I was the prior user, I was the prior applicant. I have all the right to stop another person who has come later. But if I am not taking any action in 5 years after getting into my knowledge, then I lose that right of entitlement. And what happens? So I cannot get to apply for the declaration that the registration of the later trademark is invalid, or to oppose unless the registration of the later trademark was not applied in good faith. The only condition wherein I can stop that another person from using that particular mark is if I'm able to prove that that person who has come later after me has applied this mark with a wrong intention. He has specifically applied, or he has specifically got his mark registered with a malified intention to pass off his goods as my goods, to capture my market, to create a detrimental value for my products or my services. If I'm able to prove that that person has not applied in good faith, then I can get a benefit, otherwise not. And also, the proprietor of that later trademark is not entitled to oppose the use of course, once he is registered, he cannot stop me because I am the prior user. So we both have to then simultaneously function. There are certain vested rights. Suppose, having said in the earlier slide, no, the later trademark user cannot stop me and I cannot stop him if there is no malified intention involved in this case. A proprietor or a registered user of a registered trademark cannot interfere with or restrain the use of any person who has continuously used mark from a date prior to the use or to the date of registration, whichever is earlier. Suppose if there is any person who has the mark which is registered and that date of registration is prior to the date of my application, then he has the right to continue. I cannot oppose it. In this case, the word use is also used. That means, suppose if a person is using this trademark prior to my date of registration or use, then that person gets a leeway. But of course, it's a very litigative matter, and we have to prove at every point of time. Merely by the date of use, we cannot prove anything. We have to actually prove that, though the person must have, developed the mark prior to me, but has not been using it since then I get the leeway. So it's very litigative matter. As I said earlier, every application has to be as per the classes. Now there are 45 classes under which and only under which you can apply. Out of these 45 classes, 1 to 34 are for goods and 35 to 45 are for services. Like as I gave an example of doctors provide services, so their class falls within 35 to 45. And if I'm providing any goods, then it comes under 1 to 34. So any manufacturing activity goes under 1 to 34. Any service activities will go under 35 to 45. And this classification is done as per the international classification. And any question if arises as to, this particular goods or services falls under this class or that class, then the final authority is with the registrar and his decision will be final. Registration of parts of trademark. This is also something very unique and special, that suppose if I have applied made an application which includes name, a logo and a tagline, everything together. Now actually my intention is to create ownership on the name also, on the logo also, and the tagline also. But what have I done to save money? I have filed everything into one application. Now tomorrow if somebody else says that I will use this logo, then it goes into a very long litigation. I will not say that that person will get or will not get, but we will have to enter into a very long litigation to prove that how crucial it is for us to get this logo. That a very strong mark is such which is applied separately for each and every element of the trademark. Like that McDonald's with M, with their color combination, with McDonald's written, each and everything is separately registered. So nobody can use only M. Nobody can use the name. Nobody can use even the color combination of similar to McDonald's. Each and every element, if separately registered, becomes a very strong mark. So mark consists of several matters. Suppose if a mark consists of several matters, suppose if, say for example, I have a logo registered for me, right? That particular logo includes a circle, and within that circle there are 7 stars, right? For me, that particular design of a circle having 7 stars is important. For me, that particular outlook of the design, you know, a blue circle, white stars, red background, suppose if I have that, is very important for me. Suppose if that the way those stars are marked is very important for me, and I want to create an exclusive right over all these things, then what I should actually do is I must make a separate application for the color combination. I must make a separate application for the particular stars placement, and I must make a separate application for the whole mark. The more deep you go, the more stronger you become for the ownership purposes. But again, everything has its own cost. So going right now with the, see, the more stronger your mark becomes, the more possibility of you gaining an edge over others in winning the litigation. There's a whole idea behind this. But the law very clearly says that if the mark consists of several matters, then exclusive right to use of the trademark taken as a whole. The exclusive right is considered as a whole and not separate. So section 17 very clearly says that if a person wants to create an exclusive right on each and every part of that mark, then a separate application has to be filed. Now, what do I mean by right of permitted use? As I said earlier, I'm permitting somebody else to use my mark. That person has a right to use the mark, but that person does not have the right to institute any proceeding for any infringement. If somebody else is infringing that mark, then right to proceed against that particular entity is only with me and not with that person who has a permitted use right. Now there are 2 sections very, very crucial, section 9 and section 11. It is very important for us to understand also that, you know, when your clients are going for trademark registration, then how are they liable to face an objection? There are 2 classes, sections 9 and section 11. Section 9 talks about absolute grounds for refusal. Absolute means there is no comparison with any other mark, but the section itself, or the uniqueness or the non-uniqueness of the mark itself will not allow the registry to register that particular mark. Now, what are those things? If that particular mark is devoid of any distinctive character, or it is very generic, like it is used to serve in trade to designate the kind, quality, intended purpose, values, geographical origin, or the time of production of the goods, or rendering of the services, or other characteristics. See, suppose something is very relevant, like to give you my own example, I had to apply a mark which consists for a doctor, which consists of a design, and in that design there was a plus sign. So what happened? We faced an objection saying that you are serving as a doctor, and this plus sign is very much used to serve in this particular trade. That means in this particular sector as a doctor, this plus mark is used in a generic way. So we cannot give you this particular mark. Now, I had argued at that point that, sir, kindly give me a conditional acceptance that this plus mark is not under my ownership, but this mark as a whole is my ownership. And then it was agreed and given to us. So this is as an example. Or it is very customary, except it is a well-known mark, which deceives the public or causes confusion, which is prohibited under the Emblems Act, or which hurts the religious susceptibilities, and scandalous or obscene or any obscene matter. All these things will not be allowed for registration to anybody. Relative grounds. Now, this is another important section. As I said earlier, relative grounds means you are compared with some another mark. So suppose if the applied mark is identical or similar to some another mark or a well-known mark, or there is a likelihood of confusion on the part of public, like, you know, suppose there is a brand with the name PLUCK, and it is already been registered, PLUCK, it's already registered, and somebody else comes out with a mark LPUCK. Now, the alphabets have been interchanged, but broadly, if you see, it looks quite similar. So it creates confusion in the minds of public, and it will not be allowed. The date of use is very, very relevant over here, very, very important over here. If it is identical or similar, and if you are able to prove that you have been using this mark prior to the earlier one, then possibly you would get a conditional acceptance. Registration in the case of honest or concurrent use. This I have already said, if a person without any malified intention was successful in getting the registration, then that will be considered and not objected. Now coming to the process, the first step is the public search. So as I said, this is very subjective and a litigative matter. So it is always advisable that before we actually file the application, because mind well, once an application is filed, you cannot modify anything into it except the goods or services, the list of goods and services mentioned in it. You cannot, suppose if you are giving a logo and a tagline, and tomorrow the registrar says that this tagline is not available. So you cannot then just remove the tagline and apply for the logo through that same application. You have to withdraw the whole application, file a new application with new set of fees, and then only you will be allowed to go further. So it is a very costly affair, as I said earlier. So you have to be very careful right from the start only that the thing which you are going to apply is actually registrable or not. So for that, a public search has to be conducted. There is a mechanism to conduct a public search. You have to look at the identity. You have to look at the similarity. Phonetical identical marks also are being considered as infringement. So you cannot use something which is phonetically similar. Like I would say ICE, ICE is something which is already registered. It could not be, but I'm just for the example's sake, I'm saying ICE is registered and somebody else comes up with EYES. So ICE and EYES are phonetically absolutely similar, right? But it won't be allowed because they are phonetically similar. So anything which is similar or which is already registered or which is not allowed under the Act, you can have a public search conducted. Earlier, there was some fees of 500 rupees for this public search, but now the registry has removed that fees. It's free for all. Anybody can conduct, but there is a special mechanism to conduct. Mind well, you have to search in a very, very minute manner. Then comes once you are through with the search and you are assured that then you start with the documentation part. You have to prepare the power of attorney if you are appointing any agent. Then if you are already using that mark, then you have to prove through an affidavit that how and where and how much you have used the mark, and that is known as user affidavit. And your partnership deed or MOA or how the way the applicant is, the documentation is done. Then comes the filing part. Once it is filed and the requisite fees is paid, immediately your application, once your application is been accepted by the registrar, you can apply TM alphabets along with the mark. You must have seen very popularly everywhere in many, many brands, a small TM has been written. That TM means that particular mark is been applied for registration. That does not mean that it is already registered. It is applied for registration. Then comes our first step of checking, that is formality checking of the application. In this step, the registrar simply checks whether the application is properly documented. That application contains proper documents. If that is done, then you are given a proper pass through that check, and then you enter into the second phase, and that is examination by the trademark registry. What happens here? The registry on its own checks whether the mark could be made available pursuant to section 9 and section 11, the relative grounds and the absolute grounds. If at all they find that the mark is safe, it doesn't fall under any of these sections, then they allow it to be published in the journal. It stays in the journal for 4 months. What is the meaning of publishing in the journal? That means the journal is for the public at large or all those applicants who have already applied or registered to go through it and to see whether any mark is been applied which is similar to theirs. And if they find out such mark, then they file an opposition notice to the applicant. Now, this is an area which I really fail to understand. How is it ever possible for a person to keep a continuous check, because this journal is published on a quarterly basis? And there are so many marks. How it is practically going to be possible for a mid-size or a small size applicant to keep a continuous check on this? It's going to be impossible. See, large entities like Reliance and Tata's and all, they have dedicated legal team who are continuously monitoring all these things and issuing notices and everything. But what about those people who are on a ground level or on a mid-size level? It's going to be difficult for them. But anyways, that's not the only chance given to them. Later on also, they can stop somebody whenever it comes to their notice. But this is a process which an application has to pass through. And after staying in the journal for 4 months, if there is no opposition notice, then a registration certificate will be provided. Now coming to that examination part, suppose if the registry itself, the registrar finds that this mark is objectionable under section 9 or 11, then they will issue an examination report. Then the applicant or the agent of the applicant will have to file a reply against that report, and then if the reply is sufficient, then they could accept or they could reject. Or through the examination report, we can say that we would like to appear for the hearing, and then the hearing happens. And again, after the hearing, it could be accepted or it could be rejected. If accepted, then goes to the journal. Rejected, then there is no chance. So this is how the process is. Now, suppose it is published in the journal. If there is no opposition, registration certificate will be provided. If there is opposition, then the opposition notice will be issued. And after the notice of opposition is given, then again that same steps has to be followed. Filing the reply, appearing, arguing, and acceptance or rejection. Now, once a registration certificate is been received, then an R in a circle can be put. This is basically a notice to public that, look, my mark is registered and you cannot use it henceforth. So this is how you put that R or you put that M. This is the symbol you have to put. And it is always advisable to put this mark so that public gets the notice and you get an edge over others, saying that tomorrow if you enter into any litigation, you can say that I have already been using TM alongside my mark and still that person was using it. So this gives an additional benefit to you. Now, jurisdiction for application, who can apply and where? So who can apply? We have checked where it can apply, where the principal place of business in India is there. In that jurisdiction only the application has to be filed. If there are joint applicants, then the first application who has place of business in India or the principal applicant, then in that place only the application has to be filed. If the applicant does not carry on business, there are foreign entities who are registering their mark in India, then for them the jurisdiction will be according to the address where the service of documents have to be done. You have to compulsorily give an address in India for the service of documents. And in graphical manner, I have laid down the whole process. The receipt of application, it goes to the examination application. If it is successful, there are no objections, then it goes to no opposition or opposition, and it goes to the opposition. So this is broadly to understand how the mark or the application flows through. And finally, you also have an appellate board over here. And if you are aggrieved by that order, then above appellate authority is the High Court. There is also a process for registering a mark on an international level. I have done it, and it is a very, very nice way of identifying countries wherein you want the mark to be registered. They have a group of countries which are as per the Madrid Protocol. And if you want to apply to all the countries, you have to select all. If you want to apply for a selected, you have to select only those countries. But before you go for international registration, it is mandatory for the applicant to apply for the mark in India and then only go further. Or if it is already registered in India, then it can go on international level. Now, mark, I have told you everything about the care to be taken for registering a mark, how it has to be registered. Now, what value are we creating? And that is the valuation purpose. Like, a brand, once it is developed as a brand, it is very, very important to know that what value it has. and when it is important, especially when there is any kind of mergers or acquisitions happening, or we have to report in any accounting, financial accounting purpose, or for any income tax or other tax compliance purposes. For all these purposes, you will have to actually identify the value of the mark, or rather value of the brand. Now, what are the purposes when you are entering into valuation? For transactional purposes, for example, you know very well the famous Kingfisher case. When Kingfisher was in its peak, when it was in its peak, the brand Kingfisher Airlines was valued at 3,000 crores. And it was then given as a collateral security for taking loan. Now, once it fell, it had no value at all. So the valuation is very much relevant at the time of restructuring or at the time of any financial accounting purposes. What kind of valuation method is been used for valuing any trademark or a brand? It is a combination of income, market, and cost approaches. I will not go into detail because a registered valuer will definitely know how to do it. But just to give you an idea about it, all these three approaches are used in combination. What is the meaning of income approach? The future income generated or that will be generated out of this brand will be considered. Market approach means if there is already any precedent available, then that particular value will be taken to compare. Of course, there will be a lot of pluses and minuses in considering. It cannot be straight away taken and applied to any particular case. And thirdly, the cost means the historic cost involved or the estimated cost at the time that would be required to create an equivalent replacement trademark. See, a mark which is already established, it has developed a brand for itself. It is there in the market for since last n number of years. What brand value it has? Now, as I said earlier, the Nike, that Nike brand, once I say it is enough, I will not say further. That is a value it has created over this many years. So how much time it would take if I want to develop a mark of this level? That element will be considered for valuing that particular mark. So these are the valuation methodologies considered, and this is very, very important when there are any mergers or acquisitions happening. A different set of skills are required to value this. Yeah. So what happens when during the merger a particular brand is taken over? Whole market which is captured by that brand then becomes the acquirer's market, and that is the benefit given. So branding is an essential part of the legal world, and combinations gain a lot of legal process. Of course, this branding is also very much relevant to the startups. I give the example of Oyo. There are a lot of startups which have created a value in lakhs and crores of rupees and dollars. So this is very much relevant to startups also to understand what is the value of their brand. And as I said, as I gave you the example of Kingfisher, trademarks can suffer severe obsolescence despite diligent efforts to maintain them. It takes years to create a brand, and it can be destroyed within few days also. Now, the best example is Kodak. It was a time when Kodak could have been valued in thousands of crores. And now currently, if you see with this mobile era, the brand value, the valuation of this particular brand would fall drastically. But at the same time, Coca-Cola brand, it is 120 years old brand, but it is still growing and growing. Probably it will run for furthermore 120 years. So here the brand value is increasing day by day. So it all depends upon how the market is. Now, lastly, I would like to cover up certain cases also which are very interesting and which will really help us to understand how the trademarks are registered or what care has to be taken. The very famous cases of Yahoo. Here there was already a Yahoo word, and there was another person who started using terms Yahoo India. So Delhi High Court had passed an order objecting the usage of word Yahoo India, saying that, see, there is a possibility that internet users would be confused and deceived into believing that the domain names had a common source or a connection. right? So there was a domain name with Yahoo India, and there was already an established domain name of Yahoo. So see, that person, what had happened, that person had already put a disclaimer that they are not related to Yahoo, and Yahoo is also a dictionary word. So they try to argue a lot that, see, we have already put a disclaimer, we are not trying to deceive public can very well read the disclaimer and understand who we are. But Delhi High Court said nothing doing. People are not going to every time go and read the disclaimer. Neither me or you, nobody would have read disclaimer each and every word. So what comes up first in the mind has to be considered, and Yahoo and Yahoo India are quite similar, and since Yahoo is already an established mark, you cannot use it. So this is the first ever case wherein domain name is like a corporate asset of a company was declared. So domain name is a corporate asset of a company. Another case, or a very interesting one, is you all must be knowing Daler Mehendi, a very popular singer. He had his company, and during his peak time also, there was another company which was making small idols of Daler Mehendi and selling it off. Right. So what happened? Daler Mehendi gradually came to know that this company is selling my statue to public without my permission. So they filed a suit against this company, and they were able to be successful. So as I said earlier, that any trademark in the name of a person or a dead person, recently dead person, cannot be allowed is precisely for this reason. Unless the person himself is registering for his own name or the name of his own circle with the permission. Not in use in India. This is also one interesting case. This Eledon Inc. is a US-based company and was using a medicine which is very popular globally, especially in US. It had not entered Indian market. And there was another company, Milmet Offshore Industries, which was using a medical product with that similar name in India. Now, once Elergon came to know that Milmet is using my brand name in India, they filed a suit. And what happened? Milmet argued that, look, you are using your brand in US and I'm using this in India. You can stop me using this brand in India because you have no presence in India. But later on, came to know that since that particular product was very well known globally, it was not allowed to be used in India as well. So these are certain small areas which are going with the flow. But in litigation, they are able to argue and prove their marketability and their capturing of the market, and were able to be successful in suing others. Place of use and registration. This is again an interesting case where Bisleri International Private Limited had actually sold off all the exclusive rights of a particular drink, along with the formulation and everything, to Coca-Cola company to sell it in India. Right? So the rights were sold to Coca-Cola company. A proper agreement was made wherein Coca-Cola company will be able to sell that particular drink in India. Now what happened? After a few years, Bisleri on its own started selling that same product outside India. So Bisleri started exporting that product outside India to Turkey. And it applied for registration of that particular drink's name as trademark in Turkey. Coca-Cola raised an objection and said, look, you have an agreement with me. You have already sold the rights, exclusive rights to us. Now you cannot register this, apply for registration in Turkey. And you cannot even sell it to Turkey. Bisleri argued that our agreement was that you will sell in India. We are not selling in India. We are selling it to Turkey. So we are nowhere coming in your way. So you cannot object us. But finally, High Court had ruled in favor of Coca-Cola, saying that exporting a good will be termed as trading or selling in India. And if the distillery company has sold the exclusive rights to Coca-Cola company, then it cannot apply in Turkey also. The exclusive rights, though in the agreement says to sell in India, means it includes complete right to be used by Coca-Cola itself. Then comes another, so this is something where the place of use and the registration was not considered. The place of use was construed for the export as in India only. This is a very unique case to understand how the place of use term has to be understood. Then coming to a deceptively similar, what is the meaning of deceptively similar? I'm sorry for the spelling mistake, it should be DECEP. Deceptively similar mark means here Hindustan Unilever, a very famous FMCG company, had a soap with the name Lifebuoy. It is still having it with itself. And there was another person, Utkarsh Somani, who started manufacturing soaps, and the name given was Likeboy or Loveboy. So this was, though the words, the alphabets are quite different than Lifeboy, when we are saying Lifeboy, Likeboy, you can understand it's quite phonetically similar. Also by looking, L starts with L, ends with OY. It is very deceptively similar to Lifeboy, and hence Kolkata High Court stopped Utkarsh Somani from using it, and up to such an extent that his products were seized. He was not allowed to sell the products which he already had in his godown. So these are the areas, you can understand how it is deceptively similar. Then at that point of time, you cannot argue, oh, see, it is Lifebuoy and I am Likeboy or so and so. No, by looking at it, if it is similar and it is deceiving to public, that's the end of it. Coming to same meaning but different words. The words are completely different. It is not phonetically similar. It is not alphabetically similar, but the meaning of the word is same, and the objection was approved. Here, Make My Trip India Private Limited is using its trademark, which is registered as Make My Trip. And there was another Pravasi Guide Private Limited. It used the terms Make My Pravasi. So when the Pravasi Limited company started using this name as Make My Pravasi, Make My Trip sued them and applied to the court for stopping them. So Pravasi Guide Private Limited argued that they are using Make My Trip, and Trip and Pravasi are completely different names. They are no way even similar in looking, no way similar in pronouncing. And how can they stop us? But then Delhi High Court ruled in favor of Make My Trip and said that, look, trip and Pravasi are the words which are used in the trade, and Make My Trip and Make My, the prefix word Make My makes it very much similar to Make My Trip, and hence you will not be allowed to use this mark. Then same word but different classes. As I said earlier, that every application has to be done class-wise, but at times it so happens that though you are registered in one class, you might be objected by somebody from another class. Ideally, what happens if I am applying in one particular class, then in that particular class, nobody can object to me. And at the same time, in other classes also, nobody can object to me. Here what has happened, Louis Vuitton is a very, very famous brand, designer brand. Somebody in South Korea was using this particular name for restaurant, for their restaurant. And this, the designer came to know that their brand has been used in South Korea for the services of restaurant. So they raised an objection, though the argument was that they are providing different class of goods and we are into a class of services. There is no similarity. The class of people who are going to use their products and the class of people who are coming to our restaurant would be quite different. Their country is different. Everything was argued, but it was said that nothing doing. Louis Vuitton is a very well-known mark and it cannot be hence given even for the purposes of restaurant. So thank you very much for the patient hearing, and I end my talk over here. And if you all have any questions, you can
Meghnavin,
post it.
Meghnavin,
Yeah.
we have posted you some question on WhatsApp. Should I read the questions?
Yeah, I'll go through it. On my personal WhatsApp or where?
Yeah, personal WhatsApp. I will read.
Okay.
Can a slogan or a stanza can also be registered?
Yes, it can be registered. But then we have to keep in mind that it should not contain any word which is very much related to the trade. And if at all it is,
Okay.
then we should be ready to disclaim on that particular word. Like in my case, we had registered one tagline for a logistics company and it contained the
Okay.
word logistics. So we had written that we do not claim on the word logistics, but the line as a whole. And that was given.
Okay, fine. Another question.
Hmm.
Why is registrar accepting application which has same on similar first play? We observe that even same or similar mark is acceptable and proprietor of TM has to fight.
Yes. So, see, basically, it is a very subjective matter, and there is no fixed set of. It is not a mathematical formula that 1+1 2 hota hai, aisa nahi hai, right? So, a person who is actually accepting a mark might not know somewhere there is already a mark which is similar. The similarity is a very subjective term. As I said earlier, for me, a particular mark could be very different, but for another person, it is very, very, very similar. So it is a very subjective matter. There are very rare chances, but yes, I agree. There are a few cases wherein similar marks were registered and then the matter ended up into litigation. But since it's a subjective matter, there's 10 chances. There's 10 chances that similar marks could be simultaneously registered.
Okay, ma'am. If registrar will not accept unnecessary litigation, can be avoided. I think it is continuation of the same.
I beg your pardon?
If registrar will not accept unnecessary litigation can be avoided. I think it is in the same continuation, I think. Okay, we'll go further. What are the FEMA compliances as well as provisions under trademark on transfer of trademark rights from resident to non-resident?
See, FEMA provisions will come in place only if there are any funds which are coming in or going out. So if there is transfer of right from a resident to a non-resident, if any funds are going out, then the FEMA provisions will come in. Or if there are transfer of rights from foreign country to India, then the funds would be, probably. So wherever there are funds moving here and there, the FEMA provisions will be coming in, and then accordingly, if it is going out, it's coming in FDI, and that has to be taken care of. But the FEMA provisions are only for the funds and sector based. So if in that particular sector it has been receiving, then we can take foreign funds and likewise. It doesn't have direct connection to FEMA, but only if there are certain cross-border transactions and the mergers, acquisitions, valuations. In those cases, FEMA provisions will have to be taken care. But it has to be case on case basis.
Okay. Can a CA firm can register their name or logo apart from the logo of given by SCI?
Yeah, they can very much. They fall under the class of services, and in fact, there are many CA firms, large firms, who have registered their names. You get the word chartered accountants because that is generic name. So you have to identify name which is not related, which one cannot identify that accountant's firm. Then you can get.
Okay. Fine. Another question. If we want to prepare a cloth with a cartoon character, say Chhota Bhim, whether we can do that or we have to take permission of the owner of the cartoon character, or sorry, a cartoon series.
See, the cartoon series are the registered owner of that particular character of Chhota Bhim in this case.
Okay.
So if that person is the registered owner, then you cannot print it without their permission. Like in the Daler Mehndi case, the case study which I take is similar to that.
Fine. Okay. Now, a set of questions is coming. It is in relation with the what to expand of 5 years criteria. Okay.
What is that?
If the company 5 year criteria, if the company is being using the trademark, and other companies also knowing that, but 5 years already passed, no action is taken. Yeah. The question is the 4 questions are there. As you explained, the person or a company using a particular mark from old times, say old company, and suppose there is a new company in the market with similar mark, now in existence of more than 5 years, and no action is taken by the old company, and now new company wants to register its mark, whether new company is allowed?
See, first and foremost, if you're talking about a company, then the MCA website has very strong team of people. MCA has very strong of people to identify themselves whether this particular name is already been used by somebody else or not. You know, at times we are facing a situation, even very vaguely drafted like that so and so is already registered. So apart from that, coming back, if it is not a company but a person or a partnership firm which is taken over by somebody else, going with that example, suppose if that partnership firm is having the knowledge that another partnership firm is using that same mark and are not taking action till 5 years, then I lose this entitlement to stop it.
Continuation. Further is the new company turnover.
Yes, if you are still have any doubts, if I'm able to answer the question completely, it's okay. If I'm unable to cover up any area, you can please shoot the question again or that part again.
Fine. There's another question in the same continuation. Further, if the new company turnover by number or size or volume is greater than the old company in the market, what is the chance that the new company will be sued in future on the grounds that it was not in knowledge of the old company and 5 years are not over from there coming to know?
In litigation,
one sec. I just request members to please mute themselves. Yeah. Continue. Hey, continue.
The trademark litigation considers various aspects of market capture. Second is the turnover figures and the class of people using it. There are many factors to be considered in this case. So suppose if we are able to prove that it's all upon both the parties how they are able to prove their point. Suppose if any person is able to prove that person is a very big company and has a lot of users, but I am in such a situation, that person is able to prove that he is in such a situation that it is actually not possible for him to get the knowledge of that company, then it is fine. Like, that person, maybe the director of that person was in coma and though the company was in existence, but he was not there in a position to understand that the company was there. And it is fine. As I said. Turnover figures, all those matters, but then everybody has to prove their point. And those people over there, the bench members, the judges, have to understand your intentions.
Fine. Another question. I request participants to please mute. Some are unmuted. Please mute. We're not sometimes able to identify. I request them please mute. Yeah, ma'am. Another question.
Yeah.
And same continuation. Now, say old company also wants to register their mark, whether they will get that right on or for balance of goods, etc.
I mean,
confusing.
Question rightly is
confusing.
A company and B company. A company, for example, in existence since 2000, and B company in 2015. B company has registered a mark. A company has not registered a mark. Both marks are similar. So now A company wants to register a mark which is already registered by B and has been using it since 2015. Now here the question arises is whether A company will be able to get its mark registered or not. Now my this would be that this will go under litigation. It will definitely end up into appellate tribunal or high court, whereas both the companies have to prove their point, the sales and the market capturing. But in all chances, A company will win and get the mark. It is able to prove that it has captured more market. See, it could be there since last 20 years, but the sale company has done during last 5 years, which is quite higher than those in the last 20 years. So it ultimately means what? More the sales, more it has been able to reach out to public, and more public is now identifying that mark, that particular class of goods or services. Hence,
Yeah,
the number of sales and everything is also relevant.
fine, ma'am. Some new questions regarding the CA form registration. Is registered with ICAI. Is it deemed as a registered with trademark also?
No.
Okay.
It gives you an additional advantage when you are going for registration under Trademark Act, but it will not be deemed registered under Trademarks Act.
So to separately register it if you want.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Another question. Suppose if the owner of the trademark, say individual, is dead, and the period of 10 years is not over, then from when can this registered trademark can be used? Up to which time limit it can be used further?
See, this is basically a property, right? Trademark is an intellectual property. Suppose if the person who has applied dies, what happens to his property? Officially, it goes to his legal heir, right?
Legal hands.
The legal heir is now the owner of that particular property. Now, whether the applicant himself has used that mark or not is irrelevant. The mark has to be renewed from 10 years from the date of applicant, whether used or not.
Okay. Another question. Say a company is producing the goods, okay, and marketing is done by some other company, and the trademark of the marketing company is registered. Now the producer company wants to market it separately. Whether they have to register their own trademark, or whether they will be able to do it.
This is particularly a case where a company would be getting the work done through job work system, right? So basically what happens, a person is getting the things manufactured by somebody else, and this is practically I have done in a case wherein they were manufacturing jeans, so they were getting it tailored by somebody else, and they were giving their logo label also to them. They only used to attach it on the jeans, and then the A company used to sell it. Now the person who is manufacturing has seen that there is lucrative business in this, and I also want to sell. But we cannot sell through the same logo, because that particular brand is been owned by the person who is selling it. So if that person wants to sell under the same brand, then there are only two ways. Either he buys it out, or he takes permitted use permission from the owner. Otherwise, even though if he goes for the registration, this guy who is selling it under the name will object that person.
Fine. In the case of Coca-Cola and Bisleri, what you have given.
Yes.
Regarding the question is that, what happens in case of Bisleri company manufactures such goods in Turkey rather than exporting them home country, where both companies had agreement?
In that example or in that case study, I had said that it had sold the exclusive rights along with the formulation.
Yes.
If the formulation is also been sold, then it does not have further right to use that same formulation anywhere else also.
Fine.
So it cannot produce that same product anywhere else. It has to produce a different product that it can do.
Fine. Another question. One company is supplying parts to main company, producing whole product and registered for final product. What if part supplying company wants to register their products fully? I think the same question repeated, I think. What you answered. I just repeating one again. One company is supplying parts to main company, producing whole product and registered for final product. What if part supplying company wants to register their product separately?
They can do. We have done it like, see, suppose there was a lift manufacturing company. They were having a mark registered in their own name for that particular lift. Now that particular lift was using a motor. That motor was manufactured by some another company, and that company had its own brand put on that motor, and we're selling it under that brand. Both brands are different. Like a car, you say a Tata car, right? So Tata car can have that word T on it because its T is a registered logo of Tata. But in that car, there would be oil and all those things, spare parts used which could be of some another company, and they have that registered mark placed on that particular product. So that is very well allowed. But it should be different marks. If that parts manufacturer wants to use that same mark which that final product person is using, that will not be allowed. Or if at all he wants to use, and he will have to take permission from that person.
The last question, I think. Okay. Some company deliberately uses wrong spelling of trademarks. What if some other company use the correct spelling? Will they allowed to do so? I think you answered that in your presentation.
I
Deliberately use wrong spelling of trademark.
So
some company that
Skybags.
Yeah, Skybags.
So they are not allowed. In fact, I have also observed that all those street shops we are selling clothes. Earlier they used to have that label on them. They were definitely fake ones, but they very openly used to put that label on their products. Even purses, bags, clothes are the common products wherein this infringement is very openly done. But of late there was a huge litigation drive taken against such people, and now if you go to Colaba and you see every product, the labels have been cut. Now they can sell it with that label. Yeah, still it is going on because it is so deeply entered into the market. It is practically not possible for any person to go to that level and stop them, but to a large extent they were able to curb it.
I think if you want to answer this question, it's saying that how much is cost in lump sum to register a logo, tagline in general?
Logo, tagline?
Logo, tagline in general.
If you're talking about the fees, I said that the trademark registry fees depends upon the type of applicant. If the applicant is an individual or a startup, then the fees prescribed is 4,500 for online application, and rest all it is 9,000. So if you're doing how many ever applications, you might be doing it for a logo separately, for it's immaterial. Per application, the fees will be this much.
Another question, that what is the difference between logo and trademark?
Trademark, yeah, this is a very important and a nice question. It's good. I'm happy that this question came up. See, basically, I forgot to tell you during my presentation what is the most strong mark. A word mark is the strongest mark. Like suppose I have a word to be registered as a trademark, and that word is like Meghna. I'm right now giving that example, Meghna. Right. So now, if I want to go for registration of the word Meghna, of course, it's a person's name, but still, I'm just giving you for the example's sake. Then plain Meghna, MEGHNA, plain Meghna is the strongest one. Why I'm saying it's strongest? Because suppose if I am able to get registration certificate for the word Meghna, then I have ownership to use this mark anywhere in any manner. So then it is upon me, if I'm using it in a circular manner, in a different design, in a different color combination, everything is now under my control because I have got the word mark. Now, suppose if I'm not going for the word mark and I go with a particular logo kind of thing, a design kind of thing, wherein Meghna is written artistically inside that particular oval thing, and apply for registration. And if I get it, what I am getting that particular design, the way in which MEGHNA is written. So if somebody else is developing a logo which is quite similar to that particular design, then I can stop. But if somebody else is then trying to apply for Meghna plain word, I don't have the stand to stop. So a plain word mark is the strongest. But for that, you have to take utmost care to see that it is a very unique one. I have seen many of the times people have actually applied so much of their mind to come out with a mark, and they have got it. Registration was done within 6 months without any litigation. But if there is any litigation, then it goes on for a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Another question. Mr. X is owner of a trademark, and Mr. Y is also interested in this trademark. Mr. Y waits till the expiry of 10 years of for trademark of Mr. X to expire. After the expiry of 10 years, if both apply for trademark, who will be given this trademark? Mr. X or Mr. Y? Mr.
Definitely,
X is the original owner, you can say.
yeah, yeah. See, X will not apply. X will apply for renewal.
Renewal.
So X will get it, not Y.
So it means if a renewal party is there, he will be get first chance and then the new party. That way?
Definitely, because he has a history of capturing the market. He has a history of developing a brand value for itself. So it's its own property which he has created. It cannot be given away to anybody else.
Fine. I think this is the last question we take now.
Even after the renewal period is over, suppose my term is ending in on the 30th of May, and I'm not renewing it. What happens then? And somebody else now comes up in place saying that the term has ended and they have not applied for the renewal. So now I am applying for registration. So what happens? The status of my mark will then be shown as abandoned, and this particular person is now applying. I always suggest to my clients, please don't go. It's a very risky area, because me as the owner of that particular mark, which is abandoned, have right to go to High Court and get back that mark if I'm able to prove that for some reason I was unable to renew it, or I was unable to if in any circumstances I am able to prove it, then I will be given the mark again, and that person will have to withdraw it. So it is a very risky area to enter. Better not to do it.
Okay. Regarding the logo and trademark, someone raised question that see logo, say anchor picture and trademark, anchor picture with name and electrical goods. Will it be allowed for other goods than electrical goods? No.
If I am understanding the question rightly, you are asking that a logo with anchor design for registered for one particular class of goods, can it be allowed to be registered by some another person in other class? Right?
Yes. I think what you explained in case of the restaurant that.
Right. So,
restaurant and
Louis Vuitton. So basically, it depends on what kind of mark it is. It is simply registered and not a well-known mark, then it can be allowed. It can be allowed. But then again, if the person who has already got it registered in his name is able to prove that because that person is using this mark in his class of goods or services, people are misunderstanding. So there should be some common class of people between these both goods or services. You know, somewhere if the people who are using the earlier mark are also somewhere connected to that mark, then the first person has a right to say that my people are going to that person for that particular goods and services, and they would think that I have started developing another class of goods and services to be manufactured or produced by me. So again, the first answer will be yes, allowed. But then second point would be that we have to be very, very careful, because if tomorrow this person grows and captures a huge market, then you stand a chance to face a withdrawal or rejection.
Okay. Supplementary goods like stocks manufactured by somebody using name Bata, which is not registered trademark, would it be allowed?
No. As I said, Bata is a very well-known mark, not allowed to anybody else. I give the example of drinking water.
Yeah.
Not.
Fine, ma'am. It was really a good sessions. I'm receiving messages from the participants. It was really good sessions. I think we are done for the first time, and everybody has I'm getting the messages that it was a good session. You explained in very well in detail. I think in starting you said it is being something odd subject. Although it is odd subject, but participants were there and there was from start to nobody is left. I think I will tell you, madam, once and the participants were there. Everybody has understood very well. I'm getting the messages. It was really good. We are thankful to you, ma'am, and your explanatory power, the slides, everything was superb. Thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thank you very much. Participants, we are just a small announcement. On next Tuesday, we are having the session on cybercrime by Sachin Dedia. We'll give you the messages. Thank you, ma'am. We are closing session. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.